I never imagined that one heartfelt plea could change everything for my family. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. That afternoon, the air was thick with tension, like the moments before a storm. I could feel it in my bones. My hands trembled as I picked up the crumbling letter once more, the words blurred by the tears that threatened to spill. Each time I read it, a deeper sense of dread clawed at my chest. My father, a once vibrant man who could light up any room, now slumped on the couch, his face pale and drawn. The shadows danced eerily around him, amplifying the silence that enveloped our home like a heavy fog. My mother was in the kitchen, her back turned, but I could hear the clatter of pots and angry symphony of despair. I longed to connect with her, to share this burden, but she seemed unreachable. This was our life now. Everything felt different. Our family, once bonded by laughter and love, now teetered on the brink of collapse. My younger sister, Rosie, sat cradled on the floor, her big eyes filled with confusion, reflecting the uncertainty that consumed me. What was happening to us? Just a week ago, we had everything. Laughing over dinner, planning our summer adventures. But now, whispers of financial ruin swirled around us like poisonous gas. I could see the worry lines on my mother's face deepening, her heart weighed down by debt. What could I do? I was just a teenager, trapped in a body that didn't feel strong enough to carry such burdens. Then one night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, a desperate thought struck me. What if I could change it all? What if I pleaded for help in a way that could summon magic? It sounded absurd, but desperation has a way of birthing wild ideas. I envisioned standing in front of the world, pouring my heart out. Who would listen? I whispered to myself. The silence was my answer. Days turned into weeks, and I made my plan. I would speak directly to our community, to everyone who ever crossed our path. It was an unusual thought, bordering on reckless. But in my heart, a flicker of hope ignited. The stakes were too high, I had to try something, anything, to claw us back from the edge. As I stepped into the bustling town square, a torrent of butterflies erupted in my stomach. I could almost hear my heart pounding, a drum calling me to action. People milled about, chatting and laughing, blissfully unaware of the turmoil lurking beneath the surface of our normal lives. I felt like a ghost in a world that wouldn't notice me unless I screamed. The microphone felt cold in my clammy hand as I approached the small stage. My mouth went dry, and for a moment, the crowd blurred into an indistinct mass. But then I took a breath, grounding myself in the moment. I felt my fingers shake, but I pressed on. I need your help. My voice broke the silence, charging through the air like a lightning bolt. Everyone turned. It worked. I had their attention. But the weight of my confession loomed before me. Could I share our struggles? Would they care? The faces shifted, confusion etched across their brows. My heart raced, the urgency clawing at my throat. I knew I had to be brave. Just as I began to pour out our story, the unmistakable sound of a gasp echoed through the crowd. My heart skipped. Had I said too much? Or had something shifted? A sense of foreboding swept over me. I locked eyes with my mother, who had followed me, her expression frozen in shock. The murmurs grew, pulsating with a mix of curiosity and concern. And then I heard a chilling voice cutting through the crowd. You shouldn't have done this. My breath hitched. I recognized that voice. It belonged to someone who could unravel everything we had left. What had I done? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The crowd held its breath, a tangible tension hanging in the air. I could feel the weight of their gazes boring into me, but my focus was honed in on that voice cutting through the fragile atmosphere. It had a sharpened edge, a warning, like glass scraping skin. Victor Lane. Even just the thought of his name sent a dark chill cascading down my spine. Victor had always wielded power in our small town, but now it felt like he had turned that power into a weapon. He was the town's wealthiest, most influential figure, and he was not a man known for charity. The churning emotions inside me turned into a tempest. I was teetering on the brink, prepared to either rise to my own rescue or plummet into despair. "Mind your own business, Victor," I snapped back, driven by a sudden surge of bravado. The words escaped my lips before I could process them, underscoring my defiance. I could almost feel my mother's presence behind me, her uncertainty palpable, but I wasn't about to let fear shackle me any longer. The crowd murmured, my brazen response rippling through them. I noticed a few sympathetic faces emerge, people I recognized from school and the neighborhood. They were my family in a different sense, faces I had grown up alongside. Their eyes showed glimmers of compassion and concern, and in that moment, I didn't feel as alone. Victor stepped forward, his expression hardening. "Is this really what you want, young lady? To air your dirty laundry for all to see? You think this will help your family? It will only cast shadows on their names." The ugliness of his words struck me like a wave crashing to the shore. I felt the flood of self-doubt threatening to drown me. What had I done? What if he was right? What if my plea only worsened our situation? My pulse raced, and suddenly, the tremors returned, like a fault line splitting my resolve. But just as despair unfurled its icy fingers around me, I spotted someone at the edge of the crowd. Clara, my childhood friend, stepped forward, her curly hair framing her face like a halo. In that instant, she offered a smile that felt like sunshine breaking through a storm. "Pay no attention to him," she called out, her voice bright but steady. "You're doing something brave. This is real." Her confidence sliced through the shadows, giving my voice a little more strength and my heart a little more hope. I began to breathe again, taking in the faces of those who cared. "This isn't just about us," I said, rallying. "This is about all of us who are struggling. This could happen to anyone, any family." A flurry of quiet support began to build, as some people murmured their agreement. I glanced back at my mother, who now blinked her surprise, her eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. For a fleeting moment, I felt we had turned a page, that my family's plight had become a shared experience rather than a solitary burden. "Look," Clara continued, "it's okay to ask for help. We've been through rough patches too." Her voice grew stronger, resonating with a vulnerability that connected us all. "Tell them the truth. People are kinder than you think." Hope swelled, a reluctant flicker igniting in the pit of my stomach. I took a deep breath and swayed back to the microphone, my resolve stronger than before. "We need support to get through this. My dad used to build houses for families, and now we're the ones needing help." But then Victor stepped in again, closing the space between us with his imposing presence. "Do you really want that kind of attention? This could backfire in ways you can't even imagine. Let it." I shouted, the defiance in my tone propelling me further. "What's the worst they can do? Help my family? Or help each other? You're just afraid our stories will expose how fragile your empire is." In the distance, I caught some gasps, but then I heard someone cheering, a solitary clap, soon followed by another. It's as if they were awakening from a long slumber. I felt them stirring, their energy shifting. What was once hesitation became courage. Just as I began to feel the gathering energy swell, Victor raised a hand, silencing the crowd. His eyes narrowed, and a smirk twisted his lips. "You want to play this out like a hero's story? Fine. But let me remind you that every hero has a price." His words flooded my mind with doubt, but from somewhere deep inside me, I felt a fire rising. "I'm not afraid of the cost, Victor. You underestimate the strength of people." In that defining moment, I barely noticed the small crowd now turning against him, whispering amongst themselves, emboldened. Perhaps Victor was right, but the notion didn't have the same power over me anymore. Caught in the uncertainty of how the crowd would react, my heart raced until I heard the unmistakable sound of my sister, Rosie, crying out from behind me. "Don't listen to him. We need you." The crack in the tension shattered, but then the earth beneath our feet trembled with Victor's next revelation, a smirk twisting on his lips. "You're quite the spirited child. But did you consider the family you'll be putting at risk with this? Your parents' past, it isn't as spotless as you think. That my blood turned to ice. A reality, separate from mine, loomed on the horizon, a revelation uncorked, ready to spill its burdens into our fragile lives. What did he know? What had he uncovered? In a moment wrought with uncertainty, I turned, seeking comfort, only to find my mother's face drained of color. And that's when I understood nothing had prepared us for what was coming next. The response from the crowd sputtered to a halt, a collective intake of breath as Victor's words unraveled like a thread, tightening the noose of dread around my heart. I could see it in their expressions now. Confusion bloomed into fear, flickering across familiar faces that just moments ago shone with solidarity. I wanted desperately to deny Victor's insinuation, to drown it in defiance, but the urgency in my mother's wide eyes told me he had struck a nerve. "Mom, what is he talking about?" My voice quivered, fighting to break the swell of panic as I turned back to her. The crowd seemed to hang in suspended silence, our shared history suspended in an unspoken question. She stepped closer, a fragile tremor betraying her otherwise steady demeanor. "Tu thought he wouldn't find out, but there are things about our past, things I wanted to shield you from." The weight of her confession loomed heavy in the air, like an anchor pulling us beneath the surface. The rush of betrayal surprised me. "Why didn't you tell me? Why keep it hidden?" I pleaded, wanting desperately to refocus the spotlight on Victor, to angrily shove him out of our lives again. "He's just trying to intimidate us. We were doing something brave, Mom." As I spoke, I could see Rosa's distraught face in the periphery. My sister's small figure clung to Clara, and my heart broke for her innocence as the reality of our family's narrative collided with vulnerability. Clara, still steadfast beside me, placed a comforting hand on my arm, refusing to cower in the presence of Victor's looming power. "You were brave," Clara yelled, her voice lifting slightly. "Don't let him take that away from you. Whatever he thinks he knows, you're still fighting for your family." But the strength of my sister's cries cut through her encouragement. "Is it true? Are we bad?" Rosie's little voice pierced the silence, a haunting echo of a truth none of us were ready to confront. "Never," I shouted, my chest tightening. But the certainty in my voice waned as doubt seeped through the cracks. "Victor doesn't define us. We're more than any mistakes we've made." Victor, with glinting eyes, watched this unraveling spectacle, feeding off our discomfort with insatiable hunger. "Would you all be so quick to rush to their aid if you knew the truth? Their family has its own skeletons." Fear coiled around me, tightening its grip as I awaited the damning revelation he'd unleash. A flash of anger ignited in Clara's eyes. Standing fiercer than I was, she shouted, "Stop trying to pit our families against each other, Victor. Your power doesn't dictate our worth." A voice from the crowd broke through, shaking off the tendrils of fear that had begun to encircle them. "What do you mean by skeletons?" a woman asked, her tone charged with curiosity. It sent ripples through the crowd, awakening the dormant emotions that had been lulled into submission. I stood, caught between fighting for our dignity and exposing secrets that could shatter us. I opened my mouth to respond, but before any words could escape, Victor spoke again, his voice smooth and predatory. "Let's just say, the Lanes haven't always made choices that would impress the likes of you. Perhaps it's time for everyone to decide how much they wish to truly invest in someone with such history." A murmur swept through the audience, a slow and creeping sense of unease festering like a wound. The support I had felt moments ago began to wane, shadows creeping into the light of our bravery. I turned desperately to my mother, tears gathering in her eyes. "What did he mean?" I begged. In a moment fraught with tension, she took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Victor is right, our past isn't perfect. I I had some choices I regretted long before I met your father. Choices that could change how everyone sees us if exposed. The words fell like bricks, heavy and unyielding. You didn't trust us enough to share that. I shot back, anger flaring like wildfire, ready to engulf everything. I wanted to protect you. She exclaimed, tears spilling over. I thought you were better off without knowing what we endured all of us before we started anew. And just like that, the solidarity began to quiver under the weight of our unspoken burdens. Clarity and confusion churned inside me. What if I reveal what I know? What if all of this changed nothing? My breath caught in my throat. Before I could even formulate the consequences of my actions, before I could even summon the courage to ask whether we would stand together or fracture under the weight of truth, Victor struck again, using my hesitation to stoke the growing discord. Your family will be remembered, I assure you, but not in the way you hope. And just remember, every hero has their day and their day often comes with a reckoning. The murmurs dissipated into a dreadful quiet, as if everyone was reflecting on the potential shadows Victor had unearthed. My heart raced against my ribcage, clawing for clarity. But before I could respond or even think about how to rally the crowd back, I caught a glimpse of movement in the periphery, the growing faces that supported me now halting in their tracks. A chilling silence fell as realization sank deep. Someone stepped forward from the crowd. A face I had scarcely expected, but one that brought with it a flood of memories. An old family friend, someone my mother had confided in long ago. And in that moment, standing there with uncertainty coating his every feature, he opened his mouth to speak. What Victor doesn't know is that I've kept my own secrets about the Lane family like the snap of a tightrope underfoot. I felt the world tilt, and my universe shifted as shadows spiraled around us, blurring the line between friend and foe. The cliff over which we teetered wasn't just precarious, it was absolute descent into the unknown. The man's voice broke the tension like a sudden crack of thunder, and for a moment, the crowd blurred into a backdrop of whispers and anxious glances as everyone turned their attention towards him. I could barely register who he was, someone from our past, perhaps, but his identity melted into the chaos of everything I felt in that moment. His presence stirred something deep within me, a tumultuous blend of hope and apprehension. What do you mean? My voice trembled, trepidation creeping in. Somehow, I needed to retain the shreds of dignity that remained, though the fragility of the moment felt suffocating. We were there, he said, his gaze steady on me, filled with a determination that felt contagious. Your mother and we were closer than you know. After everything that happened, I made a vow to protect her, to shield her from the repercussions of choices we both regret. You don't have to go through this alone. There was something profound in his admission, a glimmer of unity in the storm. But Victor, eyeing the crowd like a hawk, seized on the moment like a predator tipped into mania. And what secrets do you propose to share, David? Perhaps something that would expose the true nature of these Lanes. Choose your words wisely. Truth can hurt, but it can also liberate. David stepped forward, shoulders squared. We all have histories, Victor. Your power doesn't place you above consequence. You wield influence like a weapon, but the truth and the people who hold it can be weapons too. Tension sizzled in the air. Where terror had clouded my vision moments before, now a fragile thread of hope flickered in the face of David's defiance. It ignited a spark within me that had been smoldering since Victor had opened his mouth in the first place, an urge to fight back, to reclaim the space Victor had invaded with his words. Tell me. I urged David, needing to pull together the scattered threads of our past. What do you know that might help dispel this misunderstanding? We need to remember we are a family who has fought through the tempest, and if there's anything we can confront together. Doubt rippled through the crowd again. I could see it knotting their brows, ambiguity writhing like a serpent at the base of their spines. Maybe they were convinced Victor was right, maybe they saw the truths we had tried to bury. But with David stepping into the spotlight, a small wave of courage surged through the room. I know things about your mother's past, things that would shock you, but not because they make her guilty, David said, conviction coloring his every syllable. What Victor might twist into a weapon is actually a testament to survival. To resilience. You've inherited a legacy far richer than shame, it's one of fortitude, why didn't you speak up before? I countered, my voice tightening. My heart wanted to embrace David's words, but doubt lingered, creeping at the edges of my mind that I was scared, he admitted, raw and real. Scared of how your family might react, scared of Victor. But you deserve the truth. Your mother deserves for you to know what she went through. It was a tough world back then, even more so in the face of judgment. If you can rally support, if you can bathe in the light of your truth, it will enlighten all of us. In a rush of tenderness, memories of shared laughter, whispered secrets, of late-night crises drifted back to me. My mother had poured her heart into keeping us safe, planting seeds of courage within us, and I could feel that pulse now, surging stronger than any heaviness we bore. The memories collided with Victor's derision, cutting through my conflict. You see. You're not alone, I said, my voice rising higher, firmer. We are not our mistakes, we are what we choose to do next. And I choose to stand here, ready to confront whatever paths our family had to walk. I will not bow to fear. The murmurs in the crowd shifted, the fear beginning to turn into something newly defined, emboldened whispers of solidarity. Clara, too, brightened at my side, her grip firming on my arm as her voice joined in. And they'll be right there with you. Together, well. Face whatever truth comes our way. In that moment of resolve rippling throughout our small circle, I glanced back to David. Hope flickered in his eyes, and with it, the thought hung heavy in the air, could revelation actually be our salvation? But just as I wrestled with the prospect of fighting back, Victor leaned in closer. How touching, he drawled, skepticism etching his features. But I assure you, family thrives on a foundation of trust. And trust, well, it's much more complicated than you know. Are you prepared to peel back the layers? Are you certain you're ready for what lies beneath your glossy surface? My heart raced. The stakes were elevated, and with it, the potential damage loomed larger. I had brought David forward to offer hope, but what if his revelations dug deeper wounds? In the swirl of possibility, the ground beneath me felt ever more precarious. Wait, I said to David as panic surged anew. What exactly are you planning to say? What power do you hold that can shift this conversation? Victor's lips curled into a smirk. Careful now, we wouldn't want to provoke the demons. Or worse, awaken truths better left sleeping. A shiver ran down my spine, and in that very moment, my instincts urged me to trust in my family, to embrace vulnerability. Yet as the waves of uncertainty swirled anew, I realized one thing clearly: this fight was far from over. The only way out now was straight into the tangled web of the past, and just as my resolve began to harden, thunder rumbled outside, and with it, the storm clouds loomed, heavy with secrets awaiting their release, in a world where everything I had believed was about to come apart at the seams. I stood trembling on the precipice, uncertain whether to plunge into the depths or clamber back to safety. I stood at the nexus of hope and dread, teetering on the edge of a revelation that could either liberate my family or plunge us deeper into chaos. The stark contrasts within the room mirrored the flickering shadows cast by the storm outside. The tension was palpable, a synthesized gasp of breaths held, waiting for the precise moment to unleash a whirlwind of truths. David, I implored, my heart racing against my ribs, if you hold the key to this, please let's not linger in the shadows any longer. Talk to us. Whatever it is, let it out. That he hesitated just a moment too long, his gaze darted around, weighing the impact of his words against the palpable anxiety surrounding us. But the steel in my voice must have urged him further, because he finally took a deep breath and began speaking. There was a time when your mother and I shared a world far removed from the present, you know. Before the facade of family, before Victor's machinations twisted the fabric of our lives, we were just two kids caught in a storm of our own, he said, his voice heavy with nostalgia. Your mother, she made choices. Desperate ones. But they were born from necessity, from survival, not malice. She was trying to protect those she cared for. Each word dripped with an urgency that cut through the tension, but I could see the dark clouds gathering in the distance of Victor's mind, threatening to unleash their fury once more. What does that mean? I pressed, feeling the weight of history colliding with present conflict. What choices? What happened? Victor's laugh sliced through the tension, cutting across David's earnest sharing. The past is a ghost that clings tenaciously, one that can turn feral at the slightest provocation. David, you might be prepared to unveil these hidden histories, but I can assure you, not all the family's secrets are meant for the light. Are you willing to bear the burden of what's revealed? Do you really think a soundless secret can shield us from our true identity? David retorted, unwavering. We deserve to unveil the history that has chained us all these years. You may twist it, Victor, but truth as a weapon will only ensnare its bearer. Around us, murmurings escalated, growing in intensity, but the undercurrents of something more primal loomed. I sensed both the weight of our lineage and the burgeoning power of shared struggle pooling at our feet, waiting for someone to take that first brave step forward. Listen. I called out, my voice rising above the din. Whatever history creeps through the cracks of our lives, we will face it together. The words gifted me an embrace of resolve, a warmth igniting my heart. Clara's steady presence beside me steadied my breaths, grounding me in this maelstrom of uncertainty. Then the first flash of lightning hit outside, illuminating the room with a stark brightness that momentarily froze everything, not just time, but my thoughts as they ricocheted crazily. Questions hovered in the charged air, questions I feared asking. David, what about the others? Are there more truths? What about in my father's life? What part did he play in all this? My heart somersaulted at the implications, those tangled roots diverging and overlapping in ways I could scarce understand. A shadow crossed David's features, hiding a storm of conflict beneath the surface. I had hoped to spare you those details until you were prepared, he replied softly. But yes, your father, his story is woven tightly alongside your mother's. There were choices made on all sides, intertwined destinies that shaped everything. My breath hitched, a mixture of rage and sorrow surged within me. So, he knew. My voice cracked under the weight of the question. He stood by all of this, knowing what our family had endured. Not everything, David said, his eyes glistening with an unfamiliar depth, but there are layers of his past that echo through your present, a legacy, tarred by shadows, but also illuminated by moments of profound kindness. After all, he too was ensnared in a world that demanded sacrifices. Dread filled the room, creeping into the corners and darkening the once hopeful glimmers. I could feel the tension crest around us, a tempest gathering strength, and just as it seemed the storm within could release its rage, another voice broke through. Enough. Victor thundered, raw rage punctuating his words. Who gives you the right to rewrite history, to tear apart the delicate threads of our existence? You would do this for a fleeting change that could destroy us entirely. The storm outside resonated with his words, and the air thickened. An unsettling silence fell over the room as the walls pressed in tighter, a spectral witness to the unraveling tides of our family's legacy. Victor, I said, feeling the coldness seep into my bones, you cannot retain control by burying truths. We need to confront this together or risk being shattered apart. If our collage of history threatens our foundation, then we must explore each fragmented piece until we reveal a beautiful mosaic, rather than a ruin. But Victor's face turned ashen with fury, and in that moment of desperate demonstration, I felt the ground shift beneath me. You think this is a mere family matter? There are forces involved that will not forget the past. Reckoning shall come, and you. He pointed at David, his rage burning like a wildfire. You have awakened what lies dormant. What you uncover will have repercussions, and it may very well cost you everything. What do you mean? I asked, heart racing, panic threading through my veins. What forces? Are you in danger too? Or are you merely protecting your own interests? Victor's expression shifted, a flicker of something beneath the surface, a crack in his facade that sent a pulse of dread through me. In that electric moment, as the storm outside howled with anger, flashes of insight played at the edges of my mind. It hit me like a lightning bolt. Perhaps our histories were more tangled than I had realized. Our connections, our identities, they hadn't merely been born of love and courage. They were forged from a legacy riddled with secrets and sacrifices, intertwined with threads pulled tight against the throes of a fierce tempest we'd yet to define. With a sudden breath, I realized we stood at a precipice. What we would uncover could reshape everything we believed. And as the storm echoed, rain began to pour, cascading against the windows like a drumbeat of warning, letting us know that change was upon us, and the resolution lay just beyond the horizon. cruelly illuminated by flashes both of truth and despair. The rain battered against the windows, drowning the room in a symphony of chaos, drowned out only by the thudding pulse of my racing heart. I stared at Victor, whose face now bore the weight of a lifetime's burdens and unspoken truths. The flickering lights cast jagged shadows across his features, giving him an almost ghostly appearance. The tension nearly crackled in the air, a charge of desperation and unresolved conflict. "Do you think you're protecting us?" I breathed, the question trembling with the fierceness of my need for understanding. Keeping these truths locked away only shields us from the past temporarily. In time, they will surface, and they will consume us whole. Silence draped itself over us, heavy like damp wool. David's gaze flicked between Victor and me, a silent plea for us to find common ground in this tempest of emotions. "This can't be the end," he whispered, "we owe it to each other to be brave enough to face what we've hidden." Victor's shoulders slumped, momentarily revealing a flicker of vulnerability, but it was gone as quickly as it came. He folded his arms, an instinctive act of defense. "There are things you don't understand, things that if unearthed would put every single one of us at risk." "Then let us understand." Clara interjected, her voice breaking through the layers of tension. "Whatever consequences await us, we face them together. Don't let fear dictate our story, Victor." She stepped forward, the light catching her determination, a fierce but fragile shield against the chaos. Victor's expression shifted, torn by the echoes of his past and the urgency of the present. "You think it's that simple? To confront monsters that have always lurked in the dark? You have to understand, we are not just mere puppets in some tale of redemption or tragedy. There are people, real people who will want payment for the debts owed. Real people or specters of your imagination?" The words escaped my lips as a challenge. Those who govern our past aren't merely figures rooted somewhere outside our grasp, they are the very essence of who we are. We owe it to ourselves to reclaim that power. Something flickered across Victor's features, fear, perhaps. It was a fleeting moment, one that hinted at the turmoil that lay beneath, but was quickly swallowed back. "You think the truth will magically liberate you? You think it is a balm for the wounds we've accumulated over the years?" As lightning struck again, illuminating our faces, something broke in me. "No. I think it will shatter the chains binding us. It may be ugly, Victor, but it's ours to unearth. Only by uncovering the origin of our pain can we hope to heal." The storm screeched outside, almost in response, and for a moment, I could hardly see the room through the haze of my emotions. In the corner, Clara squeezed my hand, grounding me in the tempest between us. The weight of her presence steadied my resolve. "Together," she whispered with fierce determination. Unexpectedly, David stepped forward, igniting a small flicker of hope amidst the shadows. "If there's any shred of kindness woven through our family's history," he said softly, words laced with care, "then perhaps we first seek that light. History is not just a series of mistakes, it's also a string of connections that bind us, bonds of love and sacrifice. It's time to bridge the divide." Victor's expression shifted, and for the first time, the cracks in his facade began to widen. "And what if that light is too blinding? What if it blinds you to the truth, nestling you further in danger?" His words dripped with concern, but underlying that concern was something deeper, almost raw admission that maybe he, too, feared the darkness. "I'm tired of being guided by a past riddled with shadows, Victor," I exclaimed, my voice steadying with each word. "We owe it to ourselves to shine light into those corners. We deserve to know who we are, all of us." Just when it felt as though Victor might relent, his expression hardened. "It's not just about you," he began, but we were interrupted by a sudden, loud crash of thunder that seemed to shake the very foundation of the house. In that startling moment, a figure appeared in the doorway, disheveled, rain-soaked, with eyes that burned with fury and desperation. A familiar face. My father's brother, no less. "You have no idea what you've done," he gasped, breathless and panicked. "They're coming, and they've found out you're digging into the past." David's face paled, and mine dropped. The air shifted again, thickening with the gravity of the new reality. No one uttered a word, instead exchanging a silent exchange filled with fear and confusion. Who's coming? I barely managed to stutter over my trembling lips. People who will stop at nothing, he said, looking at each of us in turn. They won't care about your family. They will only care about the revelations that can cost lives. Before I could process the enormity of his words, the lights around us flickered violently and then died, plunging us into darkness. The storm outside howled through the cracks of the window, mirroring the growing dread pooling in the depths of my heart. And in that darkness, I realized we had only just begun to unravel the web of our existence, but now, the stakes had risen perilously high. We weren't just battling shadows from the past, we were facing a grim reality that threatened to engulf us all. The question echoed in my mind: how much more of the truth could we bear? The darkness draped over us like a thick fog, making every breath feel labored, every heartbeat a reminder of the fear coiling in my chest. My uncle stood silhouetted against the torrential rain, his form a haunting image as he staggered deeper into the room. "You need to listen to me," he urged, voice trembling with urgency. "They're not just coming for secrets. They are hunting for blood." My stomach churned, the reality of his words setting in like a stone. I exchanged glances with Clara and David, their faces pale in the dim light, their eyes reflecting a panic that rippled through me like an incoming tide. "We have to get out of here," David whispered, barely above a breath, while Clara clutched my hand tighter. Her warmth felt like a fragile tether, grounding me even as the walls of our home grew suffocatingly close. "No," Victor finally interrupted, his voice imbued with a steely determination. "We can't run. This is exactly what they want. To see us scattered, terrified. We need to stand strong together." "What do you mean, strong?" I shot back, a tremor of anger slipping through my fear. "How can we be strong when we barely know the enemy, let alone how to face them?" Before I could dwell on my words, thunder roared again, its anger echoing through the walls. I felt my body shudder with each quake. The image of Victor, usually so steadfast, now seemed frail against this new tide of danger. Yet somehow, amidst our looming chaos, his resolve sparked something in me, an ember igniting where fear had resided. My uncle stepped forward again, his brows knit together in worry. "They'll come for every single one of you. You must unravel the truth before they do. Your family, there are lies woven into the fabric of your past that if uncovered might reveal how to shield yourselves from them." "Lies?" I asked, each syllable dripping with skepticism. "What are you talking about?" He took a deep, shuddering breath, as though channeling every ounce of strength left within him. "This family has been shrouded in deceit, and at its heart lies a truth darker than you could imagine. The further you dig, the more danger you invite. But perhaps, within that truth, you might also find a key to your survival." As he spoke, the storm outside intensified, each crash of thunder seeming to underscore his warning. "How can we trust you?" Clara's voice quivered, yet there was a potent mix of fear and curiosity in her eyes. "Because I'm here, aren't I? I came to warn you." His gaze turned earnest, desperation etching his features. "You don't have to confront the past alone. We can face it together. There's a reason I've kept my distance, a reason I've lived in the shadows. But times have changed and you need to know why. What's in it for you?" I challenged, my heart thumping wildly in my ribcage. "What do you gain from throwing yourself into our chaos?" He let out a bitter laugh, devoid of humor. "Redemption doesn't always come wrapped in tidy bow. Sometimes, it means facing the consequences of the past alongside those you promised to protect." In a world thrumming with thunder and a darkness that threatened to consume us, I felt a flicker of something like hope, a dangerous notion that perhaps revealing the truth could pave our way forward. "You said there's a truth we need to uncover. What is it?" I asked, the fragile hope clinging to my voice. That he sighed, his eyes reflecting a tempest of their own. "Your family's past is built on the bones of secrets that've been buried far too long. It's messy, and it might hurt you. But finding the threads within that web might give you the strength to confront the danger approaching." Victor shifted, visibly agitated. "No more riddles. If you have something to say, say it clearly, he urged, the pressure of our growing chaos driving him to the brink. Just then, something collided with the front door, the force sending rattles through the wood. "They're here." My uncle spat, eyes darting toward the sound. A crack of lightning illuminated the room for a fleeting moment, showcasing the fear etched across our faces. In a rush, I turned to Clara and David, hearts racing in sync. "We have to keep digging, whatever it takes. If what he says has any truth to it, we cannot let them bind us with fear." A fleeting glimmer of comprehension passed between us, before my uncle surged forward, gripping my arm. "You can't just confront them at your door. If you have any intention of unearthing that truth, you need to go deeper, far deeper. You need to go to the source of it all." "Where?" I croaked, clammy dread washing over me. The walls groaned under the thunder's weight, and the thought of laying bare our family once more seemed an impossible task. "Your mother's journal, hidden beneath the floorboards in the library," he urged, whispering the words as if conjuring magic. "It holds everything. But you have to act quickly. Time isn't on your side." My heart quickened, and with each muffled thud against the door, I knew that facing our hidden truths was not just a matter of healing anymore, it was a matter of survival. As we raced toward the library, the air filled with an intoxicating blend of dread and renewed purpose, but just before we reached the door, another violent crash resounded behind us, unleashing splintered wood and a gust of icy air that sent chills down my spine. "Go!" Victor yelled, shoving me forward as he turned to face the threat, the shadows of long-buried fears flaring to life. In that moment of chaos, everything hinged on whether I could unravel our family's past before it consumed us whole. And as we plunged into that darkened corridor, adrenaline surged through me, the weight of impending danger chasing us down the path of secrets. Would uncovering the truth save us, or would it solidify our downfall? One thing was clear, the storm within was only just beginning. The library door swung open with a creak that echoed like a warning, but I didn't pause to dwell on it. I couldn't. Clara and David pressed in behind me, urgency burning in our veins, propelling us toward the dust-laden shelves that loomed like silent sentinels. My heart hammered against my ribcage as I pushed past the familiar rows of books, their spines whispering stories of other worlds while ours spiraled into chaos. "Where?" I gasped, scanning the faded remnants of a room steeped in memories. The polished wooden floor stretched before us, but my gaze darted to the corners, where shadows lurked like the specters of our past. "There." The loose floorboard beneath that old map, Clara pointed, her eyes wide with both fear and determination. I could feel her hand trembling beside mine, a silent reminder that we were not alone in this fight. That I hesitated for a split second, a flicker of doubt slicing through the storm of adrenaline. What if it's a trap? What if digging deeper only revealed pain we weren't prepared to handle? But as I glanced back at Clara, her faith shining through her wide blue eyes, I felt the ember of resolve reignite. We owed it to ourselves to try. With trembling fingers, I knelt down and pried at the edge of the floorboard. Dust plumed into the air, swirling around me like ghosts eager to divulge their secrets. "Help me!" I breathed, and both Clara and David dropped down beside me, urgency fueling our movements. In a matter of seconds, the board splintered away, revealing a narrow space beneath it. My heart raced as I grasped the weathered journal nestled within, its leather cover cracked and worn, as if the burdens it carried had weighed heavily for years. Every beat of my heart felt like a countdown, a reminder of the danger that loomed just outside these walls. That I pulled the journal free, the cool leather sending chills through my fingers. "What now?" David asked, the question hovering in the air, ripe with desperation. "Now we read," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Clara's grip on my arm tightened as she leaned closer, her breath hitching in anticipation. The fear of everything resting on these pages was palpable, but so was the flicker of hope that perhaps within these lines lay something that could guide us through the darkness. That I opened the journal, the musty scent wafting up like a bittersweet perfume. The first words leapt off the page, ink faded but legible. "My dear children, if you are reading this, it means the time has come to uncover our family's hidden truths. The choices we made were not meant to bind you, but to protect you from the shadows that haunt our lineage. A chill danced along my spine as I read the carefully penned lines, feeling the weight of my mother's love contending with the gravity of her confessions. She spoke of secrets buried under layers of family lore, tendrils of darkness that reached back generations, binding us to a past we had never fully understood. Each word unfurled an intricate tapestry of loss and love laced with the threat of betrayal. As I read on, the thunder outside seemed to echo the erratic tempo of my heart. She mentions a pact, I whispered, feeling a sense of dread settle over me. A deal made to protect the family, but at what cost? No, not the pact, David murmured, his face paling as he grasped the implications. You don't think, but before he could finish, the air abruptly shifted. I could hear distant voices that sounded like a mournful melody weaving through the night, ricocheting off the library walls with echoes of familiarity. The front door had given way. There was no longer the sound of rain and storm. I could hear footsteps intermingling with the whispers, a chilling harmony that suggested they had found their way in. Our sanctuary had betrayed us. Hide! I whispered urgently, shoving the journal into David's hands. We can't let them see us. At that moment, the library door swung open, revealing a foreboding figure silhouetted against the flickering light from the entryway. My breath hitched as recognition struck like a bolt of lightning. It was someone I had never expected, someone who held the final thread to our family's entangled past. Where are you? The figure called out with a haunting familiarity, their tone laced with both malice and longing. My heart pounded, the realization dawning on me. This person knew more than we could fathom. But before I could process the implications of their appearance, an urgent thought erupted through the chaos. What if this was where it all began? In that charged moment, as the figure stepped further into the dim light, I grasped the weight of the journal tightly against my chest, my family's secrets pulsing within, and realized I was no longer just searching for the truth. I was racing against time to reclaim our legacy before it consumed us whole. With the hushed echoes of the library still wrapping around us, I felt a primal instinct to recoil, to vanish into the shadows and bask in the safety of anonymity. But I stood frozen, the gravity of that familiar voice anchoring me in place. My mind whirred frantically, struggling to reconcile the sight of the figure in the doorway with memories I had locked away, a past intertwined with love, disappointment, and the bitterness of betrayal. Is it really you? Clara whispered, fear evident in her voice. I could see her trembling as she sought the comfort of my presence. Stay close, I urged, knowing that every instinct in me wanted to retreat, but the undeniable pull of curiosity and responsibility kept me tethered to this unfolding nightmare. The figure stepped forward, revealing a countenance both haunting and familiar. My heart sank when their features became illuminated by the wavering candlelight. Those same expressive eyes, deep lines cradled by years of burdens, bore into mine. I came to find you, they said, their voice almost breaking, as though it were the words desperately needed were finally spilling forth into the air. Why? The word trembled as it left my lips, thick with years of unspoken words and stifled emotions. The three of us locked eyes with this stranger, and for a heartbeat, I glimpsed the flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this was not the end of our journey but the beginning of healing. My heart ached at the potential for connection, yet I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at my gut. This was the voice that echoed in my childhood dreams, the person who had always been just out of reach, hidden behind layers of family conflict and unanswered questions. You chose to leave us behind. Why should we trust you now? I had no choice. They pleaded, extending a hand as if reaching through the chasm of years that separated us. The pact, it wasn't what you think. It was never meant to harm you. I thought it would protect you. But now, I see how blind I was. David shifted nervously beside me. I could feel the tension radiating through him, his stance ready for confrontation. Protect us from what? What kind of deal did you make? As anxiety seeped into the air like the encroaching darkness, I felt a small spark of courage ignite within me. Tell us everything. My voice held steady, the urge for answers swallowing my fear whole. I clutched the journal tightly, my fingers brushing against the cracked leather, sensing it pulse with the weight of secrets both known and unknown. The figure's gaze danced between us, pain and regret etched deeply within their expression. I can't reveal all at once. It's too dangerous. But I can tell you that there's a reason the shadows come for us. A reckoning is drawing near, and if we don't act fast, the consequences will be worse than you could ever imagine. A terrified shiver skittered down my spine. What had been whispered through the generations, the darker truths buried beneath our family history, suddenly loomed before us like an insurmountable wall. But the flicker of hope that had ignited with our unexpected reunion began to blossom, feeding off the dread. Could this be the means for salvation? I will help you, the figure continued, determination seeping into their voice. But you must promise not to turn your backs on your heritage. The truth is hidden within these walls, and only together can we unearth it before it destroys us. The shadows shifted, swirling in anticipation, as if proving this moment to be ripe with urgency. Clara's wide eyes locked onto mine, searching for the decision that would shape our futures. I looked down at the journal, absorbing the weight of my mother's words. Would I gamble our lives with this stranger, or was I ready to face whatever dark legacy awaited us? But before I could conjure an answer, the loud thud of a distant crash reverberated through the library, shaking the floor beneath us and sending a fresh wave of fear through my veins. They're getting closer, David breathed, primal instinct igniting in him as he pulled Clara and me closer together. Whether I can be your ally or not, the figure said, their voice steady now, I am here, and we must act before it's too late. I could see the resolved determination in Clara's eyes, reflected back to me like sunlight breaking through clouds. We have to try, she declared, voice fierce like a warrior, emboldening both David and me. Then there's no time to lose, whispered our visitor, stepping back toward the darkness, beckoning us forward as they ventured deeper into the shadows of the library. With every hesitant step into the unknown, I felt my heartbeat synchronize with the haunting melody of our family's legacy echoing in the stillness. This was not just about secrets, Anna Marie, it was a quest to mend the fabric of our fractured past. And as we crossed the threshold deeper into the cone of forgotten memories, my resolve solidified. We were not just searching for answers, we were fighting for the future of our family, with a chilling sense that the worst was yet to come. And then, as if confirming that dread, a loud, echoing crack rang throughout the building, the lights flickered, violent lion omen of chaos surging into our world. My heart raced, awareness crisp and sharp. I felt fear clawing at the edges of my determination. What awaited us in the shadows? Would we uncover both solace and destruction together, or would the darkness claim us one by one? It was a question that lingered heavily as we plunged deeper into the library, uncertainty hanging in the air like a thick fog, hinting at revelations yet to come, whispering of consequences far beyond my imagination. The deeper we moved into the library, the shadows seemed to pulsate with life, alive with secrets that begged to be unearthed. I could feel the weight of our family's history pressing down on us, each breath a reminder of the stakes at play. My heart sank further with every whispered word, shadowed face, and distant echo. The air thickened, charged with something ancient, a haunting presence that draped itself around us like a shroud. As our visitor led us through an archway of books, they paused, brushing their fingers across the spines, a living testament to the stories locked away. These were no ordinary tales, they were the chapters of struggle, sacrifice, and decisions that had rippled through our family tree with consequences still resonating today. I glanced back at Clara and David, their faces pale yet determined, each glance exchanging silent vows of solidarity. Every instinct told me that what lay ahead would shatter our understanding of ourselves, of what we believed to be true. We need to know everything, I breathed, the words tight in my throat, no secrets left. The figure turned to me, their eyes glimmering in the dim light, a mix of trepidation and an unquenchable fire. You better prepare yourselves, they warned softly. The truth often comes with pain, but it also brings the possibility of renewal. You must choose now to confront it, or it may consume you whole. I nodded, steeling myself against the uncertain tide. We're ready. With a flick of their wrist, the figure revealed a concealed door nestled in the shadows. As the hinges creaked open, a gust of cold air spilled out, carrying with it the scent of old paper and dust as though the very essence of history was alive within. In here, they said, gesturing for us to enter, are the words your mother wrote, the very foundation of the pact that binds our fates." Clara stepped closest to me, a hand finding mine, our fingers intertwining in mutual support as we entered the small room. As I stepped over the threshold, a thrill coursed through me, both exhilarating and terrifying. The space was filled with old trunks, crammed with letters, photographs, and remnants of a lifelong past. It felt like stepping into the heart of our family's legacy, raw and exposed, ready for us to plumb its depths. "Start there." The figure pointed toward a trunk adorned with a faded emblem, our family crest, a symbol of stories lost. My fingers trembled as I reached for the latch. It felt heavy, as if guarding the history it contained. With a decisive nudge, the trunk creaked open, and light spilled forth, illuminating dust particles that danced in the air. Inside lay the remnants of a meticulous life, neatly folded letters, each one a glimpse into my mother's soul. Heart racing, I grabbed the topmost parchment, feeling the texture beneath my fingertips, the meticulous ink swirls forming words that could change everything. As I unrolled the letter, my mother's voice filled the room in a soothing cadence, bringing a wave of familiarity crashing against me, wrapping me in its embrace. "To my beloved children, if you are reading this, times have grown dark, and secrets have woven themselves tightly into our lives." The urgency in her words clawed at my heart. Continuously, she revealed not just her fear but the weight of choices made long before my own existence. She spoke of a pact with Victor, one forged in desperation to protect our family, built on shaky foundations of silence and regret. My heart raced as I read about the sacrifices made, the burdens carried, sacrifices meant to shield us but instead spawned layers of lies that clouded our lives. "Secrets?" Clara asked, her voice barely more than a whisper, glancing apprehensively at the figure beside her. "What kind of secrets?" "She believed that the fewer we knew, the safer we'd be," the figure clarified, tucking away their own raw emotion. "But every secret kept from you, every decision, led to further entanglement with darkness." I was part of it. My heart clenched, the betrayal slicing through me, but deep down, I could understand. My mother had been fighting to protect us when we had only sought the truth. "She was scared," I whispered, realization dawning like the first rays of dawn breaking through the dark of night. The figure nodded, and silence hung heavy in the room. I continued reading, my voice trembling as I became the vessel for my mother's truths. "In revealing our history, we risk drawing out those who lurk in the shadows, hungry for what remains. But I would rather face that reckoning head-on than let you carry this burden blindly." The pain echoed within me, and slowly, understanding began to settle, alongside a flicker of defiance. My mother had laid bare her soul in these words, but it wasn't just about fear, it was about connection. "All these sacrifices," I said aloud, my voice increasingly steadied. "She believed that keeping us in the dark would protect us, but instead, it chained us to a legacy of silence." Fiery resolve ignited within me. "What if we confront this together? Face whatever reckoning lies ahead as a family?" David stepped forward, buoyed by the ripple of courage. "If we join our voices, our histories, then perhaps we can rewrite the terms of the pact." The figure, looking at us with a mix of pride and apprehension, nodded slowly. "You may yet have the power to shift the tides of fate, but it's a heavy burden to bear. Will you carry the weight of truth, the reckoning of your own legacy?" "Yes," Clara declared, raising our entwined hands into the air defiantly. "Together, we'll stand unbreakable." Light pulses through shadows of loss and fear shimmered beneath the surface, awakening something dormant, a legacy that was becoming ours to shape anew. And that moment, a singular choice hung in the air, the culmination of desperate ages distilled to this powerful confrontation, to embrace the truth, no matter how painful, united as a family. As a chorus of our voices rose together, it felt like an anthem that could shatter the chains binding our lineage to darkness and finally breathe life into the fragile hope of rebirth. As we turned away from that trunk a porthole to our past, we caught sight of shadows creeping closer, danger edging into our sanctuary. But we would meet it as a collective, our hearts resolved, fiercely entwined and beating loudly against the echoes of the past. "Come," the figure urged, eyes flickering with determination. "It's time to face the shadows together." With steady hands gripping the journal, the weight of my family's history resting on my shoulders, I stepped forward recklessly into the storm, where the boundary of truth and consequence blurred. Maybe our stories, steeped in fractured moments, could finally lead us beyond the chaos, beyond the reckoning awaiting us. And as the door creaked open, shadows blooming around us, a powerful realization took root within my chest: the fear wouldn't break us. It would forge us anew. Together, we would breathe life where darkness loomed, reminding ourselves that even in the face of devastation, love could always illuminate the way forward. As we took that first step into the unfolding tapestry of truth amid the chaos, a single thought whispered through my soul, reverberating against all fear and darkness: we were never meant to be defined by our past, but rather by how fiercely we fought for the future. With that clarity, we crossed the threshold into the unknown, a newfound determination blazing in our chests, daring whatever fate awaited us to come. Let the masks fall and the truth rise. Together, we were finally ready to reclaim our story.